All right, so we have the fuel table dialed in for the most part. We did a bunch of steady state stuff, so that's done. We're gonna start adding some timing tomorrow. So basically right now where we're at is like the entire table is about 15 degrees or so. We're only running about 60 kPa of boost right now, so we haven't turned it up. I don't know what the E07Z runs stock boost anyways. What I do know is that there is a boost controller, but again, I have zero idea of how much boost it's actually supposed to run. But we decided to call it night. Intake air temps were starting to spike up pretty hard, so we were running the shit out of the car, obviously. But we're making some headwind. But yeah, time to call it a night. We'll come back out here and start fresh again. We were just dialing it in, so I've done maybe 5 runs or so. I'm still dialing in the fuel table real roughly, but I mean the results are already looking pretty good. So for like a base map, no timing, no nothing, and we're running the stock wastegate only boost. We haven't even turned the boost up, so we were seeing about 60 kPa. I think that works out to about 10 pounds of boost or so, and we're already doing pretty okay. Yes, 44 horsepower is nothing amazing, but remember it's a K car. So I'm sure you guys who are watching this video are keeping that in mind. And the curve also looks extremely terrible. So that tells me, like looking at this dip here, that tells me that we need a ton of more timing. So the timing set at like 15 degrees all the way around just to kind of get this dialed in. So the reason why it's so low and why timing's so low, that is again, we're dialing in the fuel curve. You know, a couple of runs we were extremely rich, like 9 to 1, 9 to 1 to rich, and we're only running about 15 degrees of timing. So we're only doing this because we kind of want to see how the turbocharger acts in its natural non-boost controlled form, just to give us an idea. So we're going to leave the boost as is, and we will start working on the timing side of it. We'll start adding timing in. Our goal is basically to try to smooth this all out. So obviously at 5500 we have around a 5250 we have the crossover here. So the boost does come on extremely quickly. I mean, the moment I nail it, so the dyno run starts at 2500 RPMs. The moment I nail it, it's like in boost. So what we're gonna do again is just we're gonna start adding some timing in just to try to bring this further out and then go from there. Alrighty, so we are back on it. We got a few runs in just to baseline everything, but I've got the boost controller actually hooked up. Not very pretty because we had to step down in some hose sizes and stuff like that. So we're gonna turn up the boost. We'll do a couple of runs just to kind of dial in the boost controller to see where we're at. Today we're just gonna try to turn it up a little bit more to see where we start to run out of steam. And one of two things will happen. We'll either A, start running out of power, or B, the IATs will spike like crazy. And at that point, we'll know it's time to back off. So we've got the boost safety set up. So where I believe, all right, so we got our boost limiter at 175 kPa. So we're gonna turn this up a little bit more here. So that's 90 kPa. So 100 kPa is 0 on a boost gauge, 90 kPa worth of boost, which should be closer to 12. And then we'll make sure that our boost controller is working. And from there we can start turning it up and just seeing what we net. All right, so we've done quite a few runs back to back to get boost dialed in. So right now we're about 80 kPa worth of boost or so. Let's take a look at this log here. So we peaked about 190 kPa is what we peaked. So we're right on the limit right there. But our IATs have spiked. Now, this could be, if you look here, that's 59 Celsius, but this could be because we did a ton of runs back to back dialing the boost control. So we're basically just going to let it chill out for a little bit, let it come down to like a reasonable temp. It may not be ambient, it might be slightly higher than ambient, but... All right, so some really good news actually, and the temperatures actually stayed the same. It actually dropped a little bit, which makes sense because now air is now actually moving instead of being stagnant. So it actually looks okay. We may start turning up the boost a little bit more. We'll check to see kind of what power we're making. We'll turn the boost up a little bit more, try to hit 14 pounds of boost, see if there's a decent difference or not, and we'll go from there. So these last two runs here, we didn't really net any more power or torque really. So like, if you look here, at 14 pounds of boost we made 95, 96, and then at 17 pounds of boost we basically made nothing more. So there's really no point to run it. So we're basically out of steam on turbo. So we know that 14 pounds of boost is probably the limit there. So what I'm gonna do is let the car cool down. We're gonna turn the boost back down and we're gonna do 2 runs, one for 12 PSI and one for 14 PSI, and then just kind of see. But like I said, when we did 12 PSI, there was a significant jump in torque. So we're gonna test it again though. We'll let it completely cool down again, and then we'll do 12, 14, and then just see and overlay it over to the 17 PSI run and just see what actually nets us the most. But 14 PSI seems like the magic. Okay, so we're gonna look at sheer numbers. Unfortunately, as you can see, I've got these like out of order somehow. So if you look here, between 12 and 17, there's a huge gap, about 10 horsepower, right? But between 14 and 17 is only a 5 horsepower gain. So at that point, is it really worth running 17 PSI when you're only netting another 5 horsepower? That's 3 PSI to net 5 horsepower, you know? But if you look at the gains from 12 and 14 PSI, which is obviously a 2 PSI difference, it's about 5 horsepower. And you can see, like, even in torque, it's reflecting. So if you look at the torque at 12 PSI, we're only making 87, whereas at 14 PSI, we're actually seeing almost 96. So, and then at 17 PSI, we actually lost torque, and that actually could be because we're overspinning the turbo. So it's no longer being efficient any longer. So 14 PSI seems like the magic number. Now on E85, that might be a different story. 17 PSI on E85 may be like a worthwhile thing to do, just because that internally it's going to burn cooler and we can push the turbo a little bit further. But where I see it, 14 PSI is the ticket on this setup on 93. So we're going to go out and we'll set the ECU back to 14 PSI, and then we'll start dialing in ignition timing and seeing what we net. So I wanted to go over this log really quick here, and this is our 14 PSI log. Now, even at 17 PSI, we actually didn't even get any knock. So at 14 PSI, obviously we're not seeing any knock at all at 14 PSI. So we're gonna leave it at 14 PSI. At this point, I'm gonna go over, just smooth out the fuel table, and then we're gonna start adding a little bit more ignition timing. And then just like anything else, we're just gonna add ignition timing until we start seeing knock. Okay, so we let it run for a little bit, and the IT's dropped a good bit. You know, we let it drop down about 10 degrees from where it was last, and without making any changes, we're actually seeing a good rise in power. So again, this is 14 pounds of boost, and we've added realistically, we've actually added about 5 degrees of overall timing into our ignition table, and then it's actually netted a pretty good gain. So torque is still a little bit on the low side, but not a big deal. And now we have to ask ourselves, is it really worth running any more ignition timing? So I'm gonna let it cool down. I'm gonna add another 2 degrees or so, and then we're gonna see what we net, and just see if it's actually worthwhile. As far as the ECU goes, we're still not seeing any knock yet. So since we're not seeing any knock, we're just gonna keep on pushing. All right, guys, so we've added 2 more degrees of timing. We didn't net any more power. Well, we barely netted any more power, and we really didn't net any more torque, really. We actually lost a little bit, but the ECU is still not seeing any knock, and we've gotten to that point where we are just not making any more power. We could add timing until we see knock, but there's a good chance it's not going to make any more power, and there's no point to run more ignition timing to not make any more power. So I think that's where we're at right here on 93. I'm going to go back and start cleaning it up a little bit, and then we'll flip-flop fuels, and then we'll go start tuning for E85 and hope for more. For those of you that are curious, I put 5 gallons in Inker's car yesterday. We probably have about 30 runs or so, and we're down to 4 gallons. So we basically did 30 runs back to back, damn near, and then went through a gallon of fuel. So that's pretty cool.